Welcome to K-Drama School. Hello, my K-Drama School fans. You guys, I had a pretty fun week. It was my birthday on Tuesday. Thank you. And it was a rainy day, so I had to cancel my s'mores fire pit party. And what did I do? Oh, I saw 2 movies in theaters, and I cover both of them on my Patreon. So if you are a Patreon member and you support me financially there, then you get to hear all of my movie coverages. So go and support me on Patreon if you are not doing that currently. And I saw these 2 movies. I was with my friend, and it was rainy, but I had fish tacos, and I had french fries, and it was a decent day. Yeah, it was not a bad day. And then I moved my birthday event to Friday and had my fire pit s'mores party. Alas, I had written the incorrect address on all of my birthday party flyers. And I was like, why isn't anybody showing up? And turns out, like, I wrote the wrong fucking address. But the people who did care enough to ask, they got the right address. They got the correct address, and they showed up. And I was very, very grateful to them. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for showing up. Despite my enormous boo-boo. I mean, talk about clown fail moment, you know? Like, I'm sitting there sulking, like, oh my God, like, I have no friends, blah, blah, blah. And then people want to show up. They are showing up. It's just I wrote the incorrect address on my own birthday flyer. And I tell you, like, dyslexia is real, you know? I have, like, a very mild form of it. This time I mixed up 5 and 2. Yeah, I mixed up the numbers 5 and 2 because they look similar. Just like I mixed up the numbers 3 and 8 just because they look similar. What can I say? What can I tell you? It's how it goes. That's how my brain works sometimes. So, anyway, the s'mores were really great, and I had, some nice social time with friends. One of my stand-up comedian friends showed up. She's so funny. It was great having her. And, there were a couple of Russians there. And they were not talking about happy stuff. They were talking about, like, dead people, dead activists and things like that. I was like, hey, can you, please change the fucking subject? Because, I don't want to sit by this beautiful fire eating marshmallows, listening to you talk about dead people. Like, what the fuck? And then they had a bunch of beers, and then they became happier. There was also, like, a bunny rabbit there. The bunny rabbit's name is Freddy, but I kept calling him Frankie all night, and it didn't matter. Like, the rabbit doesn't know what his fucking name is. And I picked a bunch of dandelions from the yard, and I fed it to him, and that was fun. Like, I ran away to do that while the Russians were going off about dead people and activists. So that's how I found my joy. And you know what? Like, it was a great birthday. I had a great time. I found $1 in the yard. Like right there on the grass. There was $1 bill. So I pocketed that money. And then as I was driving home, I saw a guy who was, standing on the street corner with no home. So I gave him the $1. And that was my evening. And it was terrific. My friend Teruko came and she gave me roses, which I loved. And yeah, it was a great time. So thank you. Thank you for a great time. I also got to do my clown show, you guys. I've been taking a clown class this is my second clown class ever in my life. And it's taken 6 weeks of clown training, and then yesterday was the show. My first ever clown show, and it was great. It went well. It's interesting how time flies when I'm doing clown. Like, I mean, time flies also when I'm doing stand-up, but, like, when I do clown, I have no sense of time because I don't do, like, a prepared set. I just do, like, whatever. So that's going to be a new and interesting way for me to, like, gauge time, by doing this clown work. Because, like, a lot of it is, like, on the spot. Just games show up in the moment, and there's no way for me to predict that. Whereas, like, when I'm doing stand-up, I have a set that I've rehearsed and practiced millions of times. So I know exactly how much time each set takes or each bit is going to last. So, things like that. Acquainting myself with time and art. And this is a very relevant theme to the show I'm going to be covering today, which is Mental Coach Jegal. Mental Coach Jegal, which is, it came out like a couple of years ago, actually. I'm covering this a little bit late. And I guess the reason why I didn't cover it is because it's not on Netflix. And I mostly watch my dramas on Netflix. But every once in a while, like, I'll go hunting for other ones, like on other platforms. And this one is a show written by Kim Bandi, who has written shows like Special Labor Inspector Mr. Cho and Angry Mom. And I don't know either of these shows. And this writer seems relatively new. Like, they've been working since like 2018, 2015, something like that. Like, they've only done like 2 other shows prior to this. But Mental Coach Jegal I checked out because I'm a fan of the actor Jung-woo. Jung-woo. You all know Jung-woo. He was in Reply 1994. He's also in, what is it? Modern Family, or like Familiar. He's in that really violent K-drama on Netflix about like family. It's like drugs and violence and murder. It's crazy. And it's not a good show. So anyway, he's in that. And I really love Jung-woo because I think he's like, one of these like actor types, He's like a Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like a what's his face? Yoo Ah-in. Yeah. These types that are like born to be an actor. Like, that's what Jung-woo is to me. And I think he's a fantastically committed performer. I don't think he has much range, to be honest. I think he kind of plays like the same type, like it's like a typecast or something. Like, he always plays somebody who has some bit of authority but also a little bit of madness at the same time, like one of these like tortured geniuses, except he doesn't show the tortured part. He shows like this comedically mad part, like hysteria. Yeah, that's what he does. And yeah, like maintains like high status, maintains some kind of authority. And that's what he does again in Mental Coach Jegal. But it's like he becomes a mental coach because he has a past history. So Jung-woo is playing a former taekwondo athlete named Jegal. And Jegal used to be a taekwondo athlete, but he suffered a major injury and then a mental breakdown and had a bunch of suicide attempts, which all failed. And then he eventually recovered and became a life coach. And then became a mental coach, They call them like sports psychologists. So he's more or less that, except I don't think he has a psychology degree. And he becomes this mental coach for athletes who are training to become, Olympic athletes or national athletes. And the actress who plays the opposite, right, the leading lady is her name's Gaeul. But the actress is Yumi. And we've all seen Yumi in Squid Game. That's right. She was in Squid Game. She was also in that, what is this, Strong Girl Bongsun? It's not Bongsun, Strong Girl, different one. The new one that's on Netflix, the one that was not holding my attention at all. Anyway, she's a very talented actress, I think. She's like a budding star. Well, not a budding star. I mean, she was on Squid Game, so she's already like huge. But yeah, like she's still kind of coming into her own. I think she's still figuring out like what her deal is, because she's tried the bad girl thing. She's tried like the sweet, naive girl thing. And then now in this one, she's doing like this intense, like really driven type. And I felt like, oh, this girl has edge and this suits her. So I really liked this one because it was like a fine balance between like the edgy, like strong-headed stubbornness and then like, oh, what's the deeper trauma that you're repressing? And then where's the sweetness below that? So I thought she had like a good cohesive balance in her role here. And yeah, so Jegal coaches Gaeul, and there are a couple of things that I loved about this show. Number one, Jegal is teaching Gaeul how to stand up and speak up, like voice her truth, and to own it rather than compromise her truth and herself for the sake of her parents, or her brother. Like, there's all this pressure on her to like succeed and be somebody because her family is sacrificing all of their finances and their dignity for her sake. And she's just like, this is too much pressure, right? So there's that. But then it's like, the coach is like, if you got something going on, if you're unhappy, or, if something happened to you, you got to speak up. You cannot hide these things because that's hiding from yourself. You can't be ashamed of these things because this is all part of you. So I really loved that message. Like, anytime any show or movie or media is like encouraging a young woman to speak up and voice her truth, I'm like, okay, I'm with you right there. Like, right there, I'm with you. Because to be honest with you, even though this is like, you could argue that this is like a hack message, it's actually not. Because there's not enough media that makes it this fucking clear. Like, oh, somebody hit you? Speak up. Oh, somebody assaulted you? Speak up. Oh, somebody attempted to rape you? Speak up. Like, don't be ashamed. Don't hide. Don't act as if you don't deserve to voice your truth because of the sake of other people. Like, that needs to be spelled out again and again and again for, every single generation. And even within that generation, there are gaps and, some people miss things. You got to say it over and over and over again because girls and young women and older women, all women, they all need to hear it over and over and over again. But especially girls and young women. So that part I loved. And then the other part that I was like, oh, this show has like another layer to it, like in terms of its moral speak or whatever. But I wouldn't say this is like moral speak. It's more like, it's almost on like a spiritual plane. And what I mean by that is there's a moment when Gaeul, so she's like this like short track speed skater, right? She's going through a slump phase. Like, she can't skate and she can't like hit the milestones that she used to hit. And, her coach is being abusive and like the team is like, treating her like a pariah. And at some point, like through Coach Jegal's nurturing, she says to him, I want to skate for the love of skating because I enjoy it, for the joy of skating. Like, she's like found that love for what she initially started out, loving, which became a nightmare. But like, initially she started out skating because she loved it. So she returns to that love. And she says, I want to do it for the love of it. And for an athlete to say that, that's a big moment. Because what do athletes do? Like, especially if you're training for the Olympics, what do? You got milestones. You're like, I need to hit this goal and this goal and this goal. And that's all they do. They just rush toward those goals. They don't see anything else. So what is it? It's just anxiety. You're looking at the future, right? You're looking at the future and you're like, can I do this? I need to do this. I must do this. Oh, what if I fail? Da 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 da. That's all future talk. But she's saying, I want to skate for the love and joy of skating. What is that? That's present talk. That's mindfulness talk. That's mindfulness meditation. That is skating as mindfulness meditation. And I was like, I love that, because like this show to me had more or less the same message as all the other shows that we've seen so far. Like, it was in A Crash Course in Romance. It was in Sky Castle, right? Like, oh, this the critique of overachievement is like embedded in all of those texts. And this one is no different, except it's not academia, it's sports. But it's like the same deal. Are you going to keep rushing towards milestones and miss all the gaps in between? Or are you going to pay attention to the present moment? Find the joy, find the fun, find the play and the love right here in the present moment. Like, what are you going to do? And that, again, is like not something that's not something that I think is like a hack thing either. It's like, no, I can't get enough of that shit. Keep saying it. I need to hear it over and over again. I need that reminder constantly, and I'm somebody who fucking listens to Ram Dass and Alan Watts and Tara Brach. You know what I'm saying? Like, I listen to that shit all day, every day, and I still can't get enough because the reminder is just so necessary all the time. Like, oh yeah, there's the present. right? Because, I get caught up in my past, like, oh, what the fuck? And then I think about the future. I'm like, ah. And then I'm like, but what about the present now? Because the present now, as all these mindfulness meditation teachers say, the present moment is timeless. There is no time when you're thinking about the present. There's only the present. Isn't that a trip? Isn't that wild? Isn't that a gift? I love that. So this show for me had like some really wonderful messages that I really, really cherish. However, I do feel conflicted about the romance that buds between the coach and this athlete. All right. First of all, there's there's the ethical boundary that's being crossed. Okay, he's her mental coach. All right. I mean, towards the end, it's not the case. Like they have those boundaries now. Like he quit as the mental coach, and she's just an athlete now. So there's that. Okay, fine. But nonetheless, there's that history. And during, like, while he was coaching her, she did develop feelings for him, and she did say like, "Oh, I love you," And he like set his boundaries. He's like, "No, girl, like you can't be like that." But still, the fact that they end up dating, that they end up in this romantic relationship later, I don't know, that bothered me a little bit. I'm like, was that necessary? I think in a lot of ways it would have been far more modern and progressive if that did not end up being the case. If she ended up falling in love with some guy her own age. It's so many more appropriate. And if he did the same. But then again, if I go back to like thinking about, but what is love? Like, what makes love love? Isn't love like indefinable in some sense? Like, isn't love the element that makes you cross all of those boundaries? It makes all the boundaries collapse. Isn't that what love is, essentially? So if I think in terms of that, again, then I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure. See, I'm not so sure. So this show did a lot of, I don't know, mental stretching for me in some ways. Yeah. In other ways, I was just like, oh, this is more or less the same thing. I would categorize this show in in that category of like slow culture movement, I want to call it. Slow culture movement. It's like a kind of narrative I see cropping up in K-dramas more and more in recent years. All right. Like the anti-overachievement narrative, the anti-overachievement ideal. Yeah. That's what I'm seeing. And I saw that in Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, saw that in Summer Strike, right? Like these people who are capable, they have degrees, they have, professional jobs. Like, the Samdalli show, that's also a slow culture movement type of show. Like the girl was like this pro photographer, had some terrible, shit go down, and then she moves to the boonies and lives this slow life. So there's like a romanticization of slow culture that I see happening in K-dramas in very recent years, and it's coming up more and more often. Yeah. And it's like happening in a diverse range. And they're all more or less starting out of like webtoons or web series. That's another trend I'm seeing. So very interesting stuff. This is something I don't know. I could probably write a paper about this. So I'm thinking of doing that. But in any case, yeah, mental coach Jegal. Something to check out if you want to see good performances. And like I felt like the direction was interesting too. Very like clown like, comedic, but in like a goofy, slapsticky way. Yeah. So in any case, it's an interesting show. Something to check out. And folks, oh my gosh, if you have not pre-ordered my book, right? K-Drama School, a pop culture inquiry into why we love Korean television. If you have not pre-ordered this book and you listen to my podcast, like, hey man, what the fuck? All right, you could get 20% off by using the promo code KDRAMA20 at checkout at the hachetteBookGroup.com webpage. And you could find that link on my website, kdramaschool.com or gracejungcomedy.com. So check them out. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being great. Thank you for being wonderful. Take care, and I'll see you next week.